Well, the worst has happened. The St. Louis Blues will be without one of their best players for a while, as Robert Thomas has been diagnosed with a fractured ankle. Who do we think will need to step up in his absence? And what is the team's outlook without Thomas in the lineup? In other more positive news, Jake Neighbours just received a contract extension. So we'll break that down, give our thoughts on that, and give our thoughts on maybe some other young players that we think should get a contract extension, or what it would take from a young player for us to want the Blues to give them a contract extension. We're going to talk about all that and more today on Note News. Well, bummer. Robert Thomas is injured. We're gonna break all that down today. There's a lot of news in Blues land, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. Before we start to talk about things, I want to go ahead and ask all of our viewers and listeners to like this video if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We just got to 200 subscribers, so whoop whoop! Shout out, appreciate that. That's awesome. Let's get to 300. And follow and rate the podcast wherever you listen. We like reading some of that stuff as well. We're also on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod. We're posting memes and graphics and shorter videos, things like that. If you want to follow along with us there, that's a great way to do it. Alec, I'm going to go ahead and jump right in and ask you my first question here. So, obviously, Robert Thomas has been diagnosed with a fractured ankle. He's been placed on injured reserve, and he's expected to miss at least 6 weeks. He'll be reevaluated in 6 weeks. So he plays a premium position. He's obviously one of the Blues' best players, if not the best player on the team. And this is a critical time. It is early and there's a lot of season left, but it's important to establish yourself in a good position in the standings early on. At least I think so. So my question is, what impact do you think this will have, like, on the Blues' long-term season hopes? Obviously trying to get to the playoffs. What impact do you think it'll have on that? Do you think they'll be able to sort of withstand this loss? Maybe like keep playing well, or climb the standings, or at least tread water until he comes back. So why don't you give me your thoughts on that?
I actually am on the side of, throughout any sports season, but especially a hockey season, like, injuries will happen.
Yeah.
And if it's going to be to someone as critical as Robert Thomas, I kind of prefer it to be now versus at the end of the year. Obviously, you don't want it to be ever, but
Yeah.
for bad injury luck to happen early in the season, I think that it's actually better to recover after a slow start than, and yeah, I mean, obviously you don't ever want to be working behind, but the fact that it's now, and when this team is already playing so hard, feels like that there's still a shot that they can, keep themselves within the mix here. And when we get Robert Thomas back in a month, maybe there'll be a little bit more ground to make up, but it's better to do that now than in the midst of a playoff race. As things stand right now, the Blues in the Central Division have played the most games, tied for about half the other teams, and are fifth in the Central, and are also the first team out of the wild card / tied for the last wild card with the Kings in Seattle. So it's definitely probably, like, we're going to expect to see a bit of a drop there, but yeah, I think having that happen now versus later could potentially be somewhat serendipitous.
I think that's fair. The Blues, like, as a team last year, had some pretty good luck when it came to injuries. Not a lot of our big players really went down all that much, or missed significant time. So maybe it's just, the karma coming back to get us. But am I right in saying, like, do you agree with me when I say that vibes have been pretty high to start the season? Obviously, with the record being 4-3, it's not like the team is excelling and doing fantastically, but I feel as though vibes around this team, sort of online anyway, are pretty high right now. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. They're
Yeah.
playing hard, and it's a fun season so far.
Yeah, so this was definitely a blow when it came to that. But I think that the Blues are getting some decent enough production sort of throughout the whole lineup that I'm not sort of throwing in the towel quite yet or giving up on the Blues this season. Uh, so 6 weeks is a long time though. So that is it's going to be tough. It's going to be difficult for this team to survive without their number one center. So the fact that he's gone down now that he's missing, it's sort of like with I feel like with Cardinals pitching, to sort of give another baseball parallel as we like to do sometimes. In the past couple seasons, like at the beginning of this past baseball season, Sonny Gray went down uh, before the season, right? So he missed the start of the season, and it sort of exposed the lack of organizational depth when it came to pitching. That's sort of the way it is, I feel, with this Blues team at the center position. We've got several players that can play center, but we don't have a lot of top line, top six center talent beyond Robert Thomas. And I think the fact that he's gone down, and now you look at sort of the depth chart, it doesn't look great, to be honest, at the center position, and that it
Hmm.
really exposes a big need that the Blues have. And that's not news. We knew that, but I think you want to be a little more durable at such an important position. I feel to be a contending team. Um, so that's it's significant. I think that the argument can be made that Robert Thomas is the most important player for this Blues team. I think goaltending, like as a position, goalies are what's the phrase? It's like the most important position in all of sports when it comes to the impact that they have on team success. But with the Blues, with sort of that redundancy of solid goaltending between Jordan Bennington and Joel Hofer, I think it really just increases Robert Thomas's value, as one of the most important players, if not the most important player for the Blues. What have you seen from Robert Thomas up to this point in terms of his on ice production that you think the Blues will miss?
I'm sorry, you thought I was going to let you get away with that? Did you just say solid goaltending when referring to Joel Hofer and Jordan Bennington?
Excellent. How's that?
That's
Excellent
better.
goaltending.
That's better.
Yes. Sorry.
Um, yeah, I mean Robert Thomas has been Robert Thomas, and when Robert Thomas is Robert Thomas, no one can stop Robert Thomas. So, um,
Give me a
no,
headache.
he's been as advertised and has really. I don't know. I still hold to the take that I had that I actually think that Kyrou and Booch have kind of been outplaying him this season, but that is more credit to them than anything against Robert Thomas. He's just the most like consistently great to elite player that the Blues have seen in a while. Like even
Mm-hmm.
when in the heights of Tarasenko or Oshie or Backus or whoever, like whatever star you want to go to within this millennium, for the most part, like most of them have their ups and downs. It seems like Robert Thomas never has struggled. Like he's been the most um yeah, just reliable 1C that the Blues ever could ask for. Offensively, he was creating enough. I do think his passing was a little bit uglier than it has been, but I think to compensate that, his other offensive stuff like playmaking and shooting and whatnot is sort of risen to the level to where it's still Robert Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, just it sucks. It sucks. He was
Yeah.
our best player on paper and probably would have been the best player this season. Blues fans, I think it hurts a lot more for us too because it still doesn't feel like he gets quite the recognition that he deserves. So
Yeah, I mean, he's just so solid all around. It's like if he's not scoring goals, he's assisting goals. If he's not contributing on offense, he's contributing on defense. He's just such an all around good player that when someone like that goes down, the absence will be noticed, and so that's a bummer, which I think is a bit of an understatement. Um, so just to sort of put in perspective, sort of the impact he's had so far he's got 6 points, 1 goal, 5 assists in 7 games played, so almost a point per game. But beyond that, he's leading the team in individual expected goals, individual high danger chances for, and in face-off percentage, and that's all according to Natural Stat Trick. So those are important important statistics. But beyond that, I mean, when it comes to being a good center, he's like third in the NHL for face-off wins, and he's got a face-off win percentage of 62.6 after 155 face-offs. So, I mean, he's just winning the puck for the team. He is leading the team in a lot of important categories, and is sort of hanging in there with a lot of high caliber NHL talent on a lot of important offensive metrics. And yeah, so like I said, his absence will definitely be noticed. It will be missed, but hopefully the Blues have what it takes to at least stay afloat and tread water until he comes back. Do you think it'll take the full 6 weeks for him to recover? Do you think they will sort of wait that out and reevaluate after 6 weeks? Do you think it'll take longer? What do you think is sort of the most likely outcome here?
I think the silver lining here is that I don't think it'll take longer than the 6 weeks. I know they said they'd reevaluate, but I
Yeah,
think in his case, he's sort of been shown to be a fast healer. So since 2021, his injury history, he has suffered 5 injuries, and most of them were only like a week to 2 weeks. So he's a healthy, strong guy who's always had an ability to heal quickly. So I think it'll take 6 weeks at most. I don't know that there's anything to indicate that it'll be faster than that. We'll just have to sort of monitor as the news comes out. But I think it's safe to say a month from now, by the time into December, I guess, when standings really start to matter, we should expect to see Thomas back in the lineup, which is kind of a silver lining of like that key of yeah, when standings really start to signify how your season is going to end up is exactly the moment. And also, the Blues historically is in the past like I don't know 2 seasons or so um, seem to play really well in December. So hopefully that can be something to look forward to. But yeah, until then, it's going to be a struggle for sure.
yeah. I don't know if we said this, but he actually fractured the ankle by blocking a shot, right? In
Yeah,
this game against the Winnipeg Jets. So you hate to see it. At least he blocked the shot. So he did, I think, stay on the ice and go on to assist Brandon Saad's, I think, second goal. And yeah, so he did stay on the ice, and hopefully that won't impact his recovery at all. And hopefully when he comes back, he'll pick up right where he left off, making plays and being a great uh, a great hockey player. So obviously, when a player goes down, I think it's important to sort of think about Robert Thomas, the human, and wish the best for him, and hope that he's able to come back, as he's a damn good hockey player. And so we wish. I think I speak for us both when I say we wish him all the best, and hope for a speedy recovery for his sake.
absolutely.
Yeah, we are here to talk about the Blues as a team. That's what we're here to do. So let's go ahead and talk about that a little more by talking about the rest of sort of the depth at the center position. Now that Robert Thomas is down, what's going to happen? Which players will replace him, and what can we expect from them? Let's start with Pavel Buchnevich, who has been playing as the second line center for the Blues this season. Decent results, like you've said, in terms of I guess point production. He's been good. Other things like face-off percentage, which are important for any center, it's a little bit less positive, I'd say. Do you think we'll see? I think tonight, when they play Toronto, as we're recording this, I think the first thing they'll start out with, and it looks like, from what I've seen online, all signs are pointed this way. Braden Shen will start off on the top line as the center, which we can debate if he should, but it looks like they're going to try that. Um, so I think when we're having this discussion, we should A, consider how it'll look early on, but B, think about it for the entirety of Robert Thomas's absence. So I don't think Pavel Buchnevich will start out as the top line center. I don't think we'll see that very soon. But do you think we could see him in that position? I think is my first question.
I think we could, and I kind of feel like we should at least try. Um, then you can get Kyrou back up on the top line, and because otherwise, if Thomas isn't on the top line and it's like Neighbours, Holloway or whoever else is hot, plus Shen, I don't really know that like top line of minutes is going to do what you need a top line to do. I would much rather have Buchnevich, who's okay as a center, Kyrou, who's proven to be a top line winger, and then whoever else. I like the baseline of that play a lot
Mm-hmm.
more than the alternative. So yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
think we could see it, and I kind of think we should.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I agree with you that I think sort of what you're saying is what made the top line was Robert Thomas, and so without him, you might not see as much offensive production squeezed out of a player like Jake Neighbours or whoever else is up there with him. And that second line of Buchnevich and Kyrou has been playing, I mean, like our top
Incredible.
line in a lot
Yeah.
of games. So yeah, maybe they should just be elevating that whole line as a unit.
I
Um,
understand the sentiment of like maybe Buchnevich isn't ready for it. And there's a chance, if it doesn't work, I guess, but I just feel like any other combination of the top line that doesn't have Buch and Kyrou playing, maybe like the only other permutation I could see is like maybe you kick Buch back out to wing until Thomas comes back so
hmm,
that you could still have a top line, but then, then the depth gets even more stretched.
yeah,
Um, I don't know. I feel like just to me, I feel like I would rather see at least try it out, especially because I think Buchnevich has been, for the most part, taking really nice steps as a center. And
hmm,
yeah, he probably won't be good enough to be a 1C long term. Almost definitely won't be good enough. But that being said, yeah, as I've said, I guess I just think the alternatives are a lot worse and could lead to us falling behind in games quickly.
yeah, yeah. So I don't think they should kick him out to the wing. I think they should leave him at the center position for now. Just keep trying that and hope he is able to improve. Do you want to have the Braden Shen discussion?
I guess. It's crazy. I mean, I guess it's understandable. Like, he's the captain and he's played first line minutes before. He knows what the expectation is,
Hmm.
but he's just not there anymore. He's too slow offensively, just not like a black hole, but it is hard to generate offense with Braden Shen at center. Um, having him at a depth center position was one thing, which was okay. I don't
Yeah.
even know that I want to see him at any center position at this point. That now though, obviously that's a harder experiment to run with Thomas out. So yeah, I would be kind of upset if by like even this time next week, Shen is still the 1C.
Hmm. Yeah. I think they definitely are leaning on sort of the track record and the experience and the leadership and stuff like that. And I don't necessarily hate a line of Shin and Neighbors and someone else, but like I don't think that should be the top line, like we just sort of said. So I do think in Braden Shen's defense, he has gotten a little unlucky at times, but I don't think he's necessarily played well. I don't think I'll go that far, and I think he can still be a productive player further down the lineup. That's something that we talked about. If he's playing as like your 3C or something like that, then I mean that's not bad. And so I think I'd rather see him, if we see him at the center position, I'd rather see him a little bit lower down the lineup. I think it's sort of the same point that I was making when we talked about Vucinovic, but um, yeah, I don't think he's a 1C by any stretch. Yeah, let's talk about one thing that I've seen thrown out there is, should the Blues call up Dalibor Dvorsky? I think this is an important discussion to have with the organizational depth being as poor as it is at the center position. I think we have a lot riding on Dalibor Dvorsky becoming a solid 2C at the NHL level. So that's the hope. He's shown really good flashes in the past. His preseason this year was a little so-so. And I don't think they'll call him up at the beginning. Like I said, I think at the beginning they'll roll Shin out in the top line and fill someone else in on the lower line at center, on the lower lines at center. But do you think we could see Dvorsky at any point during this 6-week stretch? And should we? Like, should they call him up?
I will start with the should we part. I still don't think so. I know Dvorsky's looked really good in the AHL, but it's the AHL, and I think we still need. It's only been like barely a month of play in the AHL, so like
Mm-hmm.
I think it's best for him to stay down there and figure out who he is as a player before it's like, all right, now you gotta go up against I don't know. You get my point here.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
just I really worry what that could do for someone like him who is kind of lankier and I mean that could lead to a Dvorsky injury and then we're really going to be scrambling.
Yeah.
And I guess that's not totally fair because you always play that game. He can get injured in the AHL just the same as the NHL. But regardless,
Mm-hmm.
do I think we'll see him get called up? I still don't think so, but it's definitely not out of the question. It just feels like there's no scenario where the Blues would say that he should be called up because it's like if the team is playing super well, going on just rallying around the fact that Thomas is out, winning every game, obviously not every game, but then it's like, okay, things are working. Why would you change that? If the
Mm-hmm.
team is so terrible, we're losing almost everything and just scrambling for anything, why would you want to throw Dvorsky in a situation like that? And even if we're still like kind of treading that line of 500, maybe, losing a little bit more than we win or winning a bit more than we lose, like, I still feel like what does that really do to the team that's trying to figure out their identity to throw another question in there?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like from the Blues perspective, it doesn't make sense to call Dvorsky up and just let him get an actual run in the AHL. Because unless I'm mistaken, he was in the OHL last year. So playing against a different level of competition, he hasn't even adjusted to probably.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that there's too much riding on his development to call him up too soon, and mess that up. I think they should leave him in the AHL, let him learn the game down there, let him figure out that league in earnest before bringing him up. Because we saw in the preseason when he was going up against NHL, level lineups, he just didn't look ready. And so I don't think they should risk it. And I think they've got too much riding on his development long term to just call him up for this, month and a half stretch. So I don't think they should. I've seen a lot of people saying call him up, call him up, call him up. I'm excited for him too, but I want it to happen the right way, and I don't think this is it.
I
Because
agree.
even if they do call him up, I don't think he's going to be very good yet. So yeah, that's my thoughts there. So Shin was already playing some center, right? And with him going up the lineup, most likely, we're probably going to need to see someone else, someone new, slot in at center. Some names I want to talk about are Alexander Texier, Dylan Holloway, who looks like he'll probably get a look maybe as the 3C. or 4C or something like that. Um, Maybe even like a Sunquist who's just coming back. Um, who do you want to talk about first?
Um, this is maybe a more difficult decision or discussion to have, but I want to talk about Texier first.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have been a Texier guy for so long, and I just don't really understand the thought process behind why you wouldn't give Texier a look, even if it's 4C. Like you're, it just doesn't make sense, kind of in any way. I guess you're not paying him too much, really, but at least see what he has because he's shown that he's really good, especially like attacking that sort of middle lane of the ice. So
Mm-hmm.
it feels like offensively that would be putting him in an advantageous situation. He's played center before. He's actually listed as a center on the NHL website.
Yeah.
Um, like, and it just for some reason seems like they don't want to do that, and I don't get why. Like, I don't understand. I don't know. I feel like he's got pretty good hands to be decent at center. I feel like he's got enough defensive ability. He's always played hard defensively, and yeah, it's probably not going to be ideal. But also, he's like a bottom six center. It's not ever really going to be ideal unless you're the best team in
Yeah.
the NHL, which I think it's safe to say we know the Blues are not. Like, I don't know. I I really want to see Texier play at any center position except top line, obviously. Like even as like a 2C, if you promote Booch and try out Texier at second line, I wouldn't mind that. I think he's ready for the minutes. I think he's played enough in the NHL to handle that workload, and he's played center before. Like I don't get it.
I think I get it. I just think I do think he is good in a lot of the ways you said. He's like really good with the puck on his stick, and he's so fast, which is really good. And we've seen when he's gotten looks in overtime in the preseason. I think it was the preseason where they just sort of like him and Dylan Holloway and who else was on the ice? Was
I
it
think it
Nick
was
Leddy
Neighbours. Oh, you mean on the in overtime?
in OT?
Ah,
Yeah, I don't know, but anyways, it was. I think it was preseason when it was just like wicked fast, and it was a great play, and um, yeah, like I think he shows flashes like that really good. Um, I just don't think the defensive capability is quite there, and I think that's important for the center position. Um, Face-offs again, another important thing. His career face-off percentage is 35.5, and that's in about math here about 500 face-offs, maybe a little less. So I mean that's not great. So there's like a couple parts of his game that are lacking, and those just sort of so happen to be important for the center position. And so I guess that's sort of the argument against. That being said, I don't think they should say. I don't think that should keep them from giving him a look, like you're saying. I don't know why they're not trying it. I think he has has the potential to improve those aspects of his game. I think he's a really good player, and so I think I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate. I think those things I talked about are probably what they're telling themselves as why they're not giving him looks at center. Um, but I agree with you that I think we should. Like I think they should try him and just see if it works. Give him a look. What's the worst that could happen? You missed the playoffs.
that's understandable. Yeah.
Yeah. What's the worst that could happen? Your season's a wash. Um, let's talk about Dylan Holloway next, who will probably get some playing time at center. I think. Looking at the projected lineup from Jeremy Rutherford here as we record before their game against Toronto on the 24th of October. Is he in the center position on that?
Holloway?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So what do you think of that?
That's interesting. I feel like I just really like Holloway as a winger, but obviously a center is a more valuable position. So if he
Mhm.
can stick at center, then yeah, that's hugely impactful. Um, yeah, I would say it's interesting, and I'm curious to see how it works. I mean, for the reasons I said, I would just try Texier first. I feel like Holloway, he's going to be great as a winger, and depending on maybe he's good as a center, but you're kind of getting rid of a strength that you had. But defensively, he does have the chops for center. You would think. Um,
Mhm.
Face-offs, I have no idea. Honestly, I don't know how to quantify that. Um, but yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it, and I don't know.
I'm looking forward to seeing how it works, and I'm glad that they're trying it. You know what might be happening is that Texier is still. I mean, he just got injured, right, for a little bit, and Dylan Holloway's sort of been playing consistently. They might end up trying both of these guys at center, but just giving Holloway the first look. I think it might not work out too well if they played them both on those lower line center positions at the same time. So maybe we'll see Texier at some point. But I think I like giving Holloway the look first, and seeing how that works out. Just because he's been playing well, I feel like. So I don't hate that. Any other players? We'll shift next to talk about the Jake Neighbours extension. But is there anything else you want to touch on at the center position for the Blues with the Robert Thomas injury? Anything in that discussion you want to wrap up?
Um,
Sunquist or anything like that?
If it comes down to it, I was gonna say Sunquist we know can play four center. Not well, but he can do it. So
Yeah.
that's kind of always a emergency card that they have that I think if things just don't work out offensive, like if we can't score any goals with guys still learning how to play center, at that point I
Hmm.
would move Sunquist in, promote Faxa, and then figure out the top two lines somehow.
Yeah. I think I I think I more fully appreciate the Faxa edition now. um,
Yeah,
that's
me
looking a lot
too.
better now.
Me, I He's really impressed me. Not
Yeah,
as in he's like this amazing player, but man, I didn't think he was even this good.
yeah. No, he's been working his tail off. So
Hmm.
um, I I am more glad now that Robert Thomas has gone, or I guess more appreciative that Fax is there now that we know we know what we lost. Robert Thomas not in the lineup. Um,
Hmm.
so game one of the Thomasless Blues will be played tonight against Toronto. I think this episode will be airing after that game, so we don't know what happens yet, but we'll have to wait and
How
see.
about that 7-3 throttling of Craig Berube's new fraudulent team?
They, I mean, I'm interested to see how Berube reacts to that because that's been an issue for them. They've been so inconsistent game to game because the game before they were amazing. They were fantastic the game before, and then yeah, um, embarrassingly lost seven. What was it, 7-3? You said. So I mean, he's a
Oh, I
much
meant that the
different.
Blues are gonna thrash
Oh
the
oh oh
Leafs.
oh oh. What was the game that they just played? Anyways, I know they just
Yeah.
lost sort of very badly after playing well. So I mean, like their previous head coach Sheldon Keefe and Craig Berube are very different stylistically. So I'll be interested to see how Berube responds to that. Um, Anyways, do you want to talk about your favorite young lad in all the world, Jake Neighbors?
What a precious wee lad he is. Yeah, I mean he got a pretty good deal. It was 2 years for 7.5 in total, so it's a 3.25 AAV, and that is like solid money for a middle six winger, which is what we hope is his floor.
Hmm.
So that's a I think a shrewd move by the team, and obviously, we all, I think, want it to work out, but it's just exciting. Also, because I don't think that'll take effect for another year or two, because he's still on his entry level deal, or no, maybe that's incorrect. Um,
I can
yeah,
look it up real
okay,
quick.
so yeah, according to Puckpedia, this
Okay.
is it'll take effect after this year. Okay, so he's on his entry level deal this year. Okay, gotcha,
Hmm.
gotcha. Anyways,
Hmm.
yeah, I think it's a pretty good intro deal, especially like for how we talk about this window for the Blues could be opening up pretty soon. Um, you're
Hmm.
gonna have to pay Neighbors some big money into the future, but at least within the next 2 years, that does free up just a little bit more space.
Yeah. I mean, we've had a lot of time to sort of understand, get really familiar with how Doug Armstrong works as an executive, and I think he really likes these bridge deals. So that's no surprise that that's the approach that they're taking with Neighbors. Would you have preferred that they gave him a like a bigger deal, like a long term deal, or do you like that it's a shorter one?
I actually do kind of think I would have preferred a little bit more term and probably AAV, honestly. Like,
Hmm.
you could make the argument that it's putting the cart before the horse, technically, but it is tough too because he is 22. I think this is going to be his age 23 season though. I'll double check that, but
Yeah.
still very very young into the league. Yeah, okay. So this is his age 22 season. His birthday is March 29th, so he'll be 23 at the end of the season.
Hmm.
Anyways, it's still like you are going to have to pay him ideally, hopefully, and most likely a lot more money, like 5, 6 AAV somewhere, depending on how the market shapes up. Obviously depending on how the next 2 years play, but
Hmm.
projecting maybe an average amount of growth for what he's shown so far. Let's call it 4.5, 5 million for another 2 years or so. If you had instead just signed him like 4 years at like 4 million, or I don't know. I do kind of wish they had gone a little bit more term, especially just with you need to have good players around, and signing someone so young to a 2 year deal is, yeah, that's gonna get awkward probably when he hits the next stage of his contract extensions. That isn't to say that I think he's not going to end up being a Blue. I think his next contract is going to be with the Blues. Um, it just is a little bit more of a safe move that I feel like they were in the right position to do something more exciting. But as you said, this is how they do business.
Yeah. I for one, I think I'd agree that long term, long term, I would have liked to see longer term. Uh, like I want Neighbors to be a Blue for a while, but I think I would have taken a similar approach, and I am not a front office executive, but if I were, I probably would have taken a similar approach and um, waited to make sure that Jake Neighbors could do it again. Basically, he had a great year last year with 27 goals, and I mean, he kind of like exploded, right? It was a fantastic season, and we saw a lot from him offensively in the role that he played, and uh, I think I probably would have also waited to make sure he could do it again before breaking the bank, I guess. But I hope that they extend him again, like you said. But I know one thing for sure, and that is that Oilers fans are in shambles right now, um, because there
That's
was a lot
true.
of
They've been heated.
there was a lot of talk that they were going to snipe Neighbors on offer sheets this offseason the same way that the Blues got
No,
Broberg
that
and
was
Holloway.
never gonna ever happen.
You know why?
Even if we didn't extend him in the season, they were never gonna. No.
You know why? Because the
Hmm.
Blues are a smart team, and
Yeah.
well, I'm not saying the Oilers aren't, because I mean, they have a lot more recent success, but they did just sort of
They
let.
did hire a GM that is a GM that's known for not being a GM. Anyways,
Yes, we don't have to, but there is one other name that I hope they do lock up. and we're gonna save that one for the end. I think that the extension work for the Blues and their young players is not over, but I think to wrap up this episode, I say wrap up. It's going to be a longer discussion. We have a lot more to talk about, but for this sort of second half of the episode, I want to go through a bunch of other young NHL level players that the Blues have, and sort of give our takes. Do we think that the Blues should extend them? And if not, what do you need to see from that player to want the Blues to extend them? Right? I think this will be a cool exercise, and we can run through each player and sort of break down our thoughts there. Starting with my who is who is quickly becoming maybe my favorite Blue. And I think this is the case with a lot of other people right now. They're pretty high on him, but Philip Broberg, who is currently on a 2-year, $4.58 million contract, or 2 years by $4.58 million AAV, and then he'll be an RFA. Would you extend him?
Absolutely. I feel like you could kind of wait to the end of the season to
Yeah,
because I don't think
yeah.
that dollar amount has been set, but like this offseason, I think that should be priority, I don't know, in the top 3.
Hmm.
If things continue as they are, at least.
Yeah, like he just to this point hasn't had the NHL track record in terms of sustained success, but he sure is sustaining it right now. And I think, yeah, you have enough time to sort of take your time with it, and you've got those 2 years, and so there is room to work with, and enough of a window there to sort of wait and see that, and make sure he's a legit guy. But he sure looks like it right now. So
Oh yeah.
I don't really need to see much else. I just want to see him do it consistently. I mean, he's playing like a number one defenseman right now on both sides of the puck. We're like
Yeah.
we talked a lot about his offensive production. His point streak came to an end after that Winnipeg loss, but he was pretty hot for a while there. 6 points in 6 games, and so offensively, he's been great. We've talked a lot about that, but defensively as well, I've seen some just fantastic plays from him. We're going to do another episode soon. We'll talk about on ice Blues stuff, their recent games against like the Canes and the Jets and the Leafs, and we'll talk about all that on another episode. But just like in that Canes game and in that Jets game, what I saw from Philip Broberg defensively was fantastic. So really, I don't need to see much else. I just need to see him do it for a season, pretty much. Yeah, he's been awesome. Okay, let's talk about his offer sheets buddy, Dylan Holloway, who is also on a 2-year contract. His has an AAV of $2.29 million. Then he'll be an RFA. So, would you extend Dylan Holloway?
I actually think that well, I mean I think kind of the same with Broberg. I think needs a full season of play. Uh Yeah, I would not sign any like even discuss conversations, contract conversations until the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I would say like they should get something done this off season, but not even if they don't. I don't think it's the end of the world if they do kind of a Jake Neighbours like sign him mid season next year. Because his number is also, I mean, kind of the same reasons essentially, same discussion. And still a lot to prove. I don't know. I also we don't know like is he going to be signing as a center or as a winger? That's TBD, and maybe we'll find out in the next couple weeks. So yeah,
Yeah, I think with with a lot of these guys, and I think we can say for all of them that the NHL track record just isn't there. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, that's why we're doing this exercise. It's what do we need to see from him? But with him, I think I just want to see him over a full season or over the next 2 seasons, just establish himself as a legit middle six winger. Like he doesn't need to be a high scoring, um, you know, top line winger and be a star player necessarily. But if he can establish himself, like I said, as a middle six winger, maybe clean it up with the puck a little bit, and I mean that's all I really need to see from him. I think in terms of like production, like point production, like 10 to 15 goals is something I think he's completely capable of over a full season of regular playing time. So if we see that and maybe like 30 plus points over the next couple seasons each year, um, that's all I really need to see. And I would want to lock him up. I like him.
Yeah.
Um, any other thoughts on Holloway?
No, I'm with you there.
Cool. Let's talk about Texier, who we talked about earlier in the episode. He is currently on a 2-year by $2.1 million contract. Then he'll be an RFA. I think where I am with Texier is a yellow light sort of wait and see kind of thing. I like those positive aspects of his game that I broke down earlier. I like. I want to see some defensive improvements. I want to see him continue to use his speed to, drive plays, join the rush, take advantage of the rush, and really help the Blues in overtime, which I think he can be really capable of if he can do that on a consistent basis and just have results over an extended period. I'm all for extending him, but as of right now, I think it is sort of a yellow light and a wait and see kind of thing. Um, Also, what would make me want to extend him is if he can clean up some of those messier aspects of his game when it comes to playing the center position. Like if he can prove that he can be a viable option at center, then that's something the Blues need. And so I think if we see that, then I'd like him longer than just those 2 years. But what do you think?
I mean, I am biased. I like Texier a lot. I guess I'm definitely with you there that like you don't want to be signing him to. Whereas I think okay, something I didn't bring up and should have. I think Broberg and Holloway's next contracts, if the season goes all right, should probably be at minimum 3 years. Maybe more like four. Maybe five for Broberg. I don't know. Well, yeah. But whereas like Texier, I'd probably give like another 2 years or so.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe 3 years.
hmm
And you're paying him to be a depth forward, and I think that's fine. But
hmm
I would get it done, and sort of similarly, I would say there's no rush.
yeah, for sure. Um, what about Zach Bolduc? So he's more of a homegrown guy, and we saw a little bit of him last year, and sort of towards the end of the season, I think what we saw was pretty good. I liked what we saw, and especially at the beginning of preseason, he showed really good flashes of good play. He's got 2 years remaining on his entry level contract. Um, I mean, do you see him as an extension candidate? Like, do you see the potential there for him to become a guy, become a productive player for the Blues, or what do you think?
I actually don't see him as an extension candidate for now. I think he's still got plenty of time on his entry level deal. It's still a two-way deal, so he'll be up and down between the NHL and the AHL. Um, he just cracked the NHL. Like I
hmm
would wait on Bolduc until I don't even like earliest probably halfway through next season, and that's like the very earliest. I think Bolduc is a guy that you definitely want to see what he can show before you start handing out any big money because he's got potential and he's someone that I like a lot. Actually, I really like how Bolduc can fit into this team as a middle six sniper, but he's really got to prove it. So I would wait
Yeah,
for on Bolduc.
yeah, no surprise there. I agree with you for sure. It's just maybe the let's see, maybe the most unproven on this list. So yeah, definitely wait. There's no rush on that one either. One interesting name that we'll shift to now is P.O. Joseph. So he was one that uh, the Blues brought in as a free agent this year, right? And so He's only got the 1 year the 1 year contract at 950,000. He's someone that I like. I wouldn't hate if they extended him. He's got the prospect pedigree, I think, and I don't think you need to pay him big money or anything like that. Obviously, they got him for 950,000. That's not much. But what I need to see, I think, from P.O. Joseph to make me want to extend him is just prove he can be a bottom four defenseman. I don't think we need him to be anything more than that. If he can just be a consistent like third pair guy, and you're not paying him a whole lot, I think that's pretty much all I need to see from him to want to bring him back. But what do you think?
Extremely loud, incorrect buzzer.
Mhm.
I would at the very most with Joseph, I I would like pay him whatever his like arbitration ends up being at the end of this season and maybe give him
Mhm.
one more trial run. But only really as a stopgap. And I think probably you could find someone as his caliber on a cheap trade or someone there. And maybe you have to pay up a bit more. You have to give up a little bit more draft capital. But if there's a little bit more upside, I will admit, Joseph has had some good games recently.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I will give him his credit there, but I still am just not convinced. And he has the pedigree, yes, but also he has a track record of it not working out. And so I'm just still not really convinced. And I think his style is just so uncomplimentary to like just NHL level play. So I wouldn't, but I understand the thought process. I just think you could get about the same for, I don't know, maybe higher upside.
Yeah.
Would love
Yeah,
to
I
be
think
wrong.
that's I don't think I'm convinced either. I want to be clear, but I think I might be more open to being convinced, I guess, is how I'll say it. Um, because the Blues just need help on defense. And so I'm like if you can be decent, kind of like welcome on back. Is sort of what I'm thinking. But um, let's talk about a more, I guess, hot button topic, controversial guy, Scott Perunovich, Scotty P, um, who we haven't seen yet this season at all,
He should be
but
playing tonight in Toronto.
is expected to play in this Toronto game on the third pair. Um, he is currently on a 1 year deal. Let me see what is his what they're paying him. It's 1.15 million, and then he'll be an RFA afterwards. We've talked a lot about this. I mean, the results just aren't there with him, and so I have said so many times that I want to believe in him, and I want him to take advantage of whatever opportunity he's given, and um, again become a defenseman that is productive that the Blues sorely need. Um, but I'm just not seeing it yet. But what do you think on Scotty P?
I think unless he turns his season around within these next, like, I don't know, however long they want to give him, essentially, whether it's a month or the entire season, I think the ship on Perunovic has sailed. I think, and I'm hoping that he can turn it around. And there's a chance that for sure that this season is just something clicks and he's finally gets over that hump. But I think even just from like Perunovic's perspective, it just I don't even on a team that's fumbling or scrambling for defense, they're still not really giving him ice time. That kind
Mm-hmm.
of says all you need to know. Like for his perspective, I feel like it would help him to go somewhere else. And I think Blues fans are ready to move on. It feels kind of like the Blues are ready to move on. So, and especially like I think that he and P.O. Joseph are pretty comparable players to me. It's just we've seen a lot of Prunovich, not a lot of Joseph, and he's still making like 200,000 more than him, and like that isn't really that much of a figure. But both their numbers are going to go up in arbitration, so like you could find his level of NHL play for like close to league minimum, and next year he'll be
Yeah.
getting not that. So
Yeah, I mean they're paying him, like you said, more than P.O. Joseph, but he hasn't played at all. But like with him, is it that he's played like what? Hold on, let me back up. When you see him play, is it that he's playing poorly, or is it just that there's like nothing there and it's just like a lack of standout play, lack of good play?
honestly, I think it's kind of both, and it just
Hmm.
depends on like the play. Sometimes it is bad, and then when it's not bad, it's not good.
Okay. Yeah. I think when you look at some of his like expected metrics last season, it's not bad. Like I think he looked okay. But I just want to see some, I don't know, something. Just like show me something. Whether it's playmaking potential. Like he's never been a big scorer. Like score a lot of goals. He has in the past assisted a fair bit of goals. And so maybe if he can show some playmaking potential, show some solid defense, maybe even be a legit power play quarterback option, maybe on the second unit or something like that. Just like I wanna believe in him, but I just don't right now. So yeah, we'll see. That's like I said, a hot button topic for Blues fans. Um, let's talk about the guy. Well, we're gonna wrap this up with one more name, but before we do talk about this guy, um, I want to do the plugs one more time. So if you want to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel and rate and follow the podcast wherever you listen, whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We appreciate that. We're also on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod. So if you want to follow along with us there, we'd love it. We'd love to have you. So Alec, Joel Hofer, baby,
Sign him.
sign him.
I'm
Pay the
done.
man.
I'm convinced. Build the statue. I'm convinced.
Build the statue. Hmm. He has been he's been so good. I mean, aside from that Sharks game, which you know he got unlucky a couple times, getting scored on by Matthew Kessel, assisted by Macklin Celebrini for that first goal. Um, but
That's funny.
but like other than some of that stuff, he's just been so good. I don't I don't think I need to see anything else. um,
No, yeah.
yeah, he's got
Give him
1 year
2 years.
left.
Give him 3 years. Like he's 24 years old. Sign him.
Yeah,
That would
he's
be my next one.
yeah, he's got a year left on his current contract. They're paying him $775,000, which is a bargain with what you're getting from Joe Hoofer, and then he'll be an RFA. So he's another guy that Oilers fans are looking to snipe, um, or are hoping that their team will take from the Blues, but um, there's no way that Armstrong and Steen are going to let it happen. Yes, this would be like my next priority. Like now, like sign him,
Yeah, yeah. I agree.
get it
Now
done,
I've seen enough.
get it done. And he's a guy that I think in the past, maybe in the past couple of weeks, we've been like, should he be taking some starts from Bennington? Um, I mean,
Paid a
I
man.
paid a man. I will say Bennington's start, his game against the Jets was really good. Really liked what I saw from Benner there. So it's just they're both so good. But Joel Hofer, pay him. I don't need to see anything else. Yeah, we can just
Give him the
repeat that all
Swayman
day.
deal.
Yeah, you want to see 8x8
Give him the
points from five?
Shesterkin deal.
Make him the highest paid goalie in NHL history. I've seen
I
enough.
seriously would give him like 3 years though, even though he still has like so many years of RFA rights still being owned. I would give him like 3 years. Like I've seen enough.
Yeah, yeah, no, like make him happy, make him want to stick around because I think he could be a long term option.
I
So
agree.
good. So good. I love that guy. So nice to have
Good
him.
friend of ours.
Good friend of the pod, Joel Hover. Yeah. So, any other names that you wanna talk about, uh, contract extension wise?
I don't think so. I think we touched on everyone.
Yeah.
Checking one more time. Yeah, I think
Speaking
that's it.
of speaking of contracts, for anyone that doesn't know, the Blues have a page on their site dedicated to their roster and contracts. It's like a cap friendly type uh, Blues centric page. It's like nhl.com/blues/teams/contracts, and you can see um, you can see the contracts for each player, which is pretty like surprising that they have that. That they're I don't know that they did it themselves, but if anyone wants to check that out, yeah, it's pretty cool. And then also obviously Puckpedia is sort of become the go-to site. So if anyone has any other contract thoughts or questions or anything like that, then drop them in the comments. You can leave comments on Spotify too, so do that. I think that's going to do it for us this time on Note News. Like I said, our next episode will be hopefully pretty soon, and we're going to talk about some actual on ice play that we've been seeing from the Blues. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe, follow, rate, all that good stuff. Like I mentioned, yeah, that'll do it for us. We'll see you next time on Note News. Let's go Blues.
Let's go Blues.